radio home of the 76ers.
Simmons on a drive and down the lane with a right-hand jam.
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City, 97.3 ESPN. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. We are live in the Matt Black Kia Studios, hanging out with you on a Hump Day Wednesday night here on 97.3 ESPN FM. It is a Weinberg Wednesday. That means Dave Weinberg will join us coming up at 6:15 today. We got a busy night as well with Kevin McCormick live up at the center for Sixers and Rockets. Sixers are back in town. You can hear all the action tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 7:30 tonight. Yes, 30, not 7, because tonight and Friday night, the Sixers games are on ESPN television. So, kind of like I asked Scoop B last night on Game Night, I asked him, what does the rest of the league think of the Sixers? Well, you can find more about what the people around the rest of the league think about the 76ers tonight when they are on ESPN television. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 973 ESPN on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And of course, we get text board open 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation as well. And there's a lot of rumors out there right now about what is going on with the Eagles and Carson Wentz. Like, I want to get into some of that before we get to the Sixers talk, because there is a little news with the Sixers, and that is no Ben Simmons tonight. It looks like he's got like some sort of stomach bug, stomach fluids, not COVID related. So he's just not feeling well for whatever reason. You know, maybe he ate the wrong thing. Maybe he ate too fast. You know, maybe he, I don't know. I'm not going to presume or assume anything, but I know he's not playing tonight. But Joel Embiid is playing. So we do have that going tonight. So that's a little breaking news for you at the top of the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Back to the Eagles stuff. You know, when you think about what's going on with the Eagles and Carson Wentz, there's a ton of speculation. And I've been trying to consume as much information about this situation as possible this week. And as time goes on, the more it seems like that this deal is going to happen at some point, whether it's tonight, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's next week, I don't know. But I found it very interesting that there's a contingent of people out there who are still hanging on to this idea of Carson Wentz, right? This idea that Carson Wentz could come back. Can we put the toothpaste back in the tube, as Sal Palantonio put? You saw this if you were watching on television. You saw on KJZ, which you heard every Monday through Friday from 6 to 10 a.m. here on 97.3 ESPN. Keyshawn Johnson demonstrated there is a way to put toothpaste back in a tube, literally, which was on one point hilarious. The other point felt like it was a waste of everybody's time. But the point is that when you think about the situation, Carson Wentz is getting traded. Whether he's going to the Colts or the Bears, I don't know. But Dan Graziano said it this morning on Get Up on television that the Eagles don't have to pull the trade until they're ready.
The only real deadline on this would be March 20th, which is a date on which Carson Wentz will receive a $10 million roster bonus. Now, if you're the Eagles and you know you're not going to have him on this year's team, you would like his new team to pay that instead of paying it yourself. So that's really the deadline. You know, so until you get to the point where you feel like no one's going to offer any more, then there's no reason to really pull the trigger yet.
There's no reason to pull the trigger yet. And that's the key thing we have to keep in mind. It doesn't matter what you or I think about Carson Wentz. It doesn't matter what you or I think about Howie Roseman. It doesn't matter. The Eagles are going to make the deal when it benefits them to make the deal. And that's the biggest part of all this. And that's not some random Joe Schmo saying that. It's not the random dude who's out in public who you met at the store or at the gym. No, that is someone who covers the NFL saying, look, Wentz is getting traded, but it's just not going to be yet. Here's what also Dan Graziano said about the Wentz situation this morning on ESPN TV.
The market for Carson Wentz from the Eagles' standpoint didn't materialize to the extent that they had hoped it would. I do believe he'll be dealt anyway, and all this discussion will be irrelevant because it will be Jalen Hurts' team.
He will be traded, but the Eagles, the market is not what they hoped for. And that's telling because it gets back to the conversation we've been having. See, for all the people who either love or hate Wentz, you got to remember that it's not about what we think about Wentz, it's what the rest of the NFL thinks about Wentz. We know Wentz is getting traded. When, where, and how, and for what is what's debatable. To finish it off, here's what Graziano said about Wentz's preferred destination.
It's reached a point where the team and the player agree, right? I mean, the Eagles are working on trading him, and I believe that they will. So it got to a point where he doesn't want to be there. Let's move on. But yeah, I think that's how it started was Wentz telling them or letting it be known that he didn't want to be there. I think he'll end up out of town. Colts would be a preferable destination, as you mentioned, because of the offensive line situation. But I think it'll be one of those two teams, and it'll be some time in the next couple of weeks.
So this trade is going to happen. So I think it's fair to say we can put the rest, the idea that Wentz could come back, might he come back, all that kind of jazz. The bigger question is, what does this mean for the Eagles moving forward? What this means is that Jalen Hurts is the quarterback. You don't draft him in the second round just to not play him next year. And I thought it was very interesting that as we go forward, look at the stories that are coming out. Jalen Hurts is working with the receivers this offseason. How about the fact that Jalen Hurts did multiple interviews during Super Bowl week? He was on CBS Sports. He was on NFL Network. He was just having a good old time doing interviews, doing an Instagram Live with Kay Adams. I mean, come on. The guy is out there in the public doing interviews, and Carson Wentz is silent. You know, you've probably heard here on 97.3 ESPN the promo where Jay Williams from KJZ says, this is Jalen Hurts' team. I really think that's true. As we're going along, I really feel like it is looking more and more that this really is Jalen Hurts' team. Torrey Smith, former Eagles wide receiver, this is what he had to say about the situation. And when you hear this, I want you to think back, because this is something that I've pointed to here on 97.3 ESPN. Mike Gill has pointed to here on 97.3 ESPN. This is a guy, not behind a microphone, who played in the NFL saying this about the dynamic. Of course, when we click the button, we would like the cut to actually play. Let's do that. Take two.
When it comes to relationships, I believe they love both guys in the locker room. However, Carson's from the Midwest, and I'm not trying to disrespect anyone there. Jalen is a Q from Omega Psi Phi, and he has a lot more swagger. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's a better teammate, because I know Carson was loved, and I love Carson as a teammate, but there are going to be handshakes by Jalen. Carson's going to give you a high five and a great job, bud, and keep it moving.
One guy can identify with people. The other guy can't identify with people. The one guy is part of a fraternity in college. He played at Alabama. He's from Texas. He went to Oklahoma. He played with future NFL players. He understands different people from different backgrounds. Carson Wentz pretty much didn't leave his home state until he started playing football in college. One guy can have handshakes with guys. The other guy, as Torrey Smith put it, gives you a high five and keeps it moving. I told you guys before, how many times did you ever watch Brett Favre? He got along with everybody. That's Carson Wentz's idol. Sorry, Carson, you are nothing like Brett Favre. You just don't have the relatability. And that's no hate on Carson Wentz. That's a reality. You grow up in a certain environment, you only know that. Okay, his best friend on the team, quote unquote, is Fletcher Cox, supposedly, according to Fletcher. Great. They go fishing together. But that's on the defensive side of the ball. You got to get along with the offensive lineman. You got to get along with everybody else on the team as well. And the fact that a NFL player sees what other people are seeing tells you exactly what the situation is. Carson Wentz can go and have success somewhere else in the NFL. But I think it's very obvious that Jalen Hurts has the belief and the eye and the camaraderie of his teammates. Carson Wentz is getting traded. And yes, the toothpaste in this situation cannot be put back in the tube. 609-403-0973 is the text board. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter here on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up next, we'll get more into the Eagles and the NFL with Dave Weinberg, longtime Eagles writer. And then we will go up to the center, Sixers versus Rockets tonight at 6:40 with Kevin McCormick live in the building right here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by the First Bank of Seattle City. And don't forget my FanDuel Sportsbook pick of the night coming up about 40 minutes from now here on 97.3 ESPN. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just follow 97.3 ESPN to watch the show.
Wake up weekday mornings from 6 to 10 with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin on 97.3 ESPN.
Carson Wentz has had opportunities to battle with Jalen Hurts. I don't know if he knows who he's getting in the mud with. I don't think Carson Wentz wants that fight. And can you imagine what the narrative will be if Carson Wentz then loses the locker room again? He will be done in the National Football League.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Weekday mornings at 6 on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
This month, let me offer you some presidential advice. Leave your dollar in your wallet when you get 0% APR financing from Matt Black Kia.
Matt Black Kia wants to get you out of that old car you hate. Come in today or visit us online and get the credit you deserve. 0% APR financing available for up to 60 months on new 2021 Kia Sportage, K5, and Forte models. Or take $4,000 off MSRP on new 2020 Kia Niros in stock. Plus Matt Black Kia in Toms River and Egg Harbor Township wants your trade, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, you can't make a mistake with our 4-day love it or leave it return policy.
It's gotta be a Matt Black Kia.
Offers for Tier 1 and 2 credit for Kia Motors Finance. Not all will qualify. 0% based on 15, 16 per 1,000 cars. 4,000 all 2020 Euros with 2,500 Kia Motors factory rebate to dealer. 1,500 Matt Black Kia discount. Go to mattblackkianj.com for complete details. Expires 3/4/2021.
Matt Black Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. And now on Route 37 in Toms River.
Recently, Total Wireless helped Charlie Michelle stage a virtual dance recital for her friends and family.
This event was super meaningful to them.
Because when you move to Total Wireless, you can get amazing devices on nationwide 5G. And with unlimited plans starting at $25 a month, you could save up to $1,200 a year.
Thank you, Total Wireless, for helping me pull this off.
Total Wireless. Do amazing. Compatible 5G device required. 5G network in limited areas. Month equals 30 days. Savings claim made when compared to 4-line postpaid plans of leading carriers 10-20-20. See terms and conditions at TotalWireless.com.
Hey guys, are you afraid of taking off your shirt in public? Don't be embarrassed. Just say, I love Lyle back instead with male breast reduction. Many men develop a fullness in their chest as boys that persists and even worsens as they get older. This condition is called gynecomastia, and with simple liposuction, most cases can be effectively treated. Call 856-MAKEOVER today to schedule your private consultation with Dr. Lyle and Back. That's 856-MAKEOVER, or visit ILoveLyleBack.com.
Trust Jenkins Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Homeowners, no need to call the drain guy, the heater guy, or the plumbing guy. Call Jenkins. One call does it all. Jenkins technicians are trained to do it all, so you only have to call one number, 609-641-6262. Jenkins & Sons has been on the job since 1949. For new heating and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, oil service, plumbing, and drain cleaning services, one call does it all. Call 609-641-6262 or visit jenkinsandsons.com. That's 609-641-6262 or jenkinsandsons.com.
Jenkins Plumbing and Heating. We're always here for you. Jenkins Plumbing and Heating. We're always here for you. Jenkins Plumbing and Heating. We're always here for you.
It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey tomorrow on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app with Tim Saunders and Steve Coates calling all the play-by-play action.
He scored!
The Flyers host the New York Rangers tomorrow. Coverage begins after high school basketball. It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey on the radio home of the Flyers in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN and listen live on the free mobile app. You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. It is a Weinberg Wednesday. Yes, every Wednesday, Dave Weinberg joins us here on 97.3 ESPN. You can follow him through at Dave Weinberg 19. Check out his extra point columns over at 97.3ESPN.com. As you know, this Eagles stuff, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And, you know, the quarterback situation doesn't seem to go away. Dave joins us as he does every week on the Boardwalk kind of hotline. Dave, how you doing this Wednesday?
I'm doing well, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing well. I think I'm doing better, though, than some of the fans are out there, because I think there's a contingent of fans who they just want this to be over with. I mean, we have heard a lot of people have a lot of opinions about the situation. I think one of the things that stood out to me, at least, Dave, is the fact that in this situation with the Eagles, let's be realistic. I think a lot of people want this to be over.
Yeah, they're getting tired of the drama and of the politics, if you will. It's just it's turned into a circus at this point. I mean, the Eagles are clearly asking too much. Now Carson has kind of like wielded his power a little bit by evidently saying he's not interested in going to Chicago. Well, now the Bears don't want him if he doesn't want to be there. So does Indianapolis step back into the mix? Do they keep him? It's just it's a big circus, like I said.
One of the things that stood out to me is that, and I've heard there's a contingent out there. I want to know your opinion on this because you've covered the Eagles the entire Jeffrey Lurie tenure as owner. You know, usually when the reports are out there that a guy is being traded, he's going to be traded. And I feel like there's a contingent of people who are trying to create this storyline of, well, there's a way he can come back. Do you believe that at all?
No, I don't. Usually when this kind of thing, comes about, that means the guy's you got 1 foot out of town and he's packing his bags. I just don't know how he can come back at this point if he's, clearly he's made it clear that he doesn't want to be there. The Eagles are made it clear they don't want him. I don't know how they could keep him and then, expect him to be the team player and the leader and what have you in that locker room. I just don't. I just think that he's burned too many bridges. I just don't see it happening.
Why do you think that it has gotten to this point where it seems like the fan base is so divided? Because I feel like there is a strong contingent of people who seem to be Wentz, it was a bad year and all that kind of stuff. Why do you think people are still hanging on to that?
That's a good question, Josh. I don't know. I guess they keep harking back to, 2017, he was on track for an MVP season before he got hurt. And, but hey, I'm as confused as you are by that stance. He's really had maybe one good year, I guess, and been injured twice. Then another concussion in the playoffs. And this year was just an absolute dumpster fire. He was just awful. And the people that think that he can be fixed, I don't know why they would think that. I guess because he was the number 2 overall pick, they gave him the big contract. I guess he's basically a nice guy. So maybe they just have hung their hats on him and they don't want to part with him. But at this point, I'd be shocked if he stays, although they may not have any choice at this point. I don't know.
Well, that's a very interesting point because I'm finding that more and more people who are covering the league are insisting this deal is going to happen, it's going to get done, but the deadline is that March 19th roster bonus. So, Dave, that's a month away. Is there really a possibility this could drag out for another month?
I guess the possibility is there, but the Eagles are just going to have to bite the bullet here and come way down on their asking price. And Carson's just going to have to come to terms with the fact that whoever trades for him wants him. So why not go somewhere where you're wanted? Even whether it's Chicago or Indianapolis or Denver or what have you. I mean, clearly, if a team is willing to trade for you, that means they want you in their city, on their franchise, and in their lineup. So I don't know why he would be opposed to that.
Dave Weinberg joining us here on a Weinberg Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg 19. Also check out his extra point columns at 97.3 ESPN.com. Dave, speaking of you covering a team, a guy who you did cover during the Super Bowl run was Torrey Smith, and he was on ESPN television this morning. And one of the things he brought up was he says he thinks that Jalen Hurts has this connection with his teammates and that Wentz doesn't have that connection. And I have to wonder how valid that is, because that's coming not just from someone like you or me, that's coming from someone who was in the locker room with Wentz and observing the situation as a former NFL player.
Yeah, as I've mentioned before to you, I don't know that Wentz really had that connection. Even like in 2017, 2018, it was clear that Foles was the preferred quarterback for a majority of the team. Wentz, Carson did have his supporters, Zach Ertz, a couple other guys, what have you, but he just doesn't connect with the team. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's arrogance, resistance to coaching, or maybe it's just his aloofness that he just doesn't really hang out with a lot of guys. So maybe they're just not comfortable with him. Whereas Jalen, I don't know what kind of guy he is, but I know he's a leader. I mean, he's proven that everywhere he's been. I think he showed a lot of good qualities in the limited time he was able to play this year. So I think the future is really bright for him, and I think the team is willing to support him and to back him where they just weren't willing to do that with Wentz.
Why do you think that we don't talk enough? And maybe we should talk more about it, the fact of the culture of the locker room. I had someone text in a little bit earlier saying we don't talk enough about, how the culture in the locker room affects things. You mentioned Nick Foles. Listen, that Sam Seliquito, what was his name? Seliquito, right? Who wrote the article a couple of years ago. He brought up
Joe Seliquito.
Joe Seliquito. Thank you. He wrote that article. One of the things he mentioned there was the fact that the locker room was really behind Foles. Well, maybe those same guys are looking at Hurts and have a similar connection. So maybe it's not as much about who's the more talented or who should be the quarterback as much as maybe the locker room is telling you for everybody.
I think there is a degree of truth in that. I mean, they gave Wentz a lot of money, so they're not willing to just, let him go, I guess. But yeah, it's clear that I don't know what the disconnect is. I don't know why it's there, but it's evident that, as Joe pointed out a couple of years ago, once Foles took over, the team really got behind him and embraced him. And the same thing the following year, where you saw Chris Long building a shrine to Foles in his locker. Everybody's like itching to be the one to light the candle. And they just seem to bond with him. I don't know. It might be the personality, because Nick is not a big me first kind of guy. He's willing to play his role. He's willing to let his supporting cast lift him and help him. And whereas Carson, I guess because of maybe his draft status or what have you, he's always a guy who tries to do everything himself. And I think that might be what the big difference was.
Dave, you covered the Eagles for a long time. Is this the most ridiculous quarterback situation you've ever seen in your time?
Oh, boy. Yeah, it's up there. I mean, there were some years where, there's a lot of, a little bit of controversy. I do remember when Jeff Garcia, delivered that playoff win, or delivered that big win when McNabb got hurt, and he wanted to come back. McNabb was kind of feeling a little unsettled by it. But but by and large, I mean, everybody seemed to get along. There's always that natural competitiveness between quarterbacks. Everybody wants to be the guy, but this is like a carnival of. I honestly haven't seen anything like this. You're right.
Now, something that you wrote about at 97.3 ESPN.com that's being rumored about right now. I don't know if everybody stole your idea or not, but the idea of Nick Foles coming back to Philly in a potential Chicago trade, that's circulating out there. I feel like everybody stole your idea, Dave.
Oh, I guess I get one right every once in a while. Maybe they think I know what I'm talking about. Not too many people do, but I mean, I've been quick to point out that I don't mean to bring Nick in to compete with Jalen. I want Nick to be the backup. Jalen is the starter, but Nick has been around the league a long time. He knows, like we've talked about before, he knows what it takes to play in Philadelphia. He understands the fan base. He understands the culture. He understands the pressure. And I think he not only could he handle it, but I think he could help Jalen handle it too. And so that's why I think it's a pretty good idea to bring him back as a backup, as a mentor, the way they did, like, I guess the way they used McCown last year.
I talked about this earlier in the week. I want to ask your opinion about this, Dave. So when you look at Carson Wentz, my opinion is that we got to stop looking at Wentz just in the terms of the Eagles. You look at Wentz in terms with the rest of the NFL season. Listen, there's other quarterbacks who are potentially being moved this offseason. I think we all can agree that Deshaun Watson and Matt Ryan have more cachet around the league than Wentz. But what about guys like Sam Darnold or Jimmy Garoppolo or a free agent like Mitch Trubisky? Like, how does Wentz rack up against those guys in terms of value?
Well, that's a good question. He's certainly behind Deshaun Watson. I think I just saw a report where Carolina was willing to give up 3 first-round picks and Christian McCaffrey for Deshaun Watson, which is just unbelievable to me that they would even consider that. And Wentz is no more near that ballpark. So I would think he ranks behind Deshaun and Matt Ryan, like you said. Sam Darnold's an interesting case. I think he has a lot of potential, but being with the Jets, he really wasn't put in a position to succeed. I think there are probably teams out there that probably rank Sam ahead of Carson. Although when Carson's on, he's as good as it gets. But the problem is he hasn't been on in quite a while.
Now, with all that being said, Dave, at the end of the day, this is the other question that's being asked a lot. Does Carson Wentz have the possibility of being a good quarterback elsewhere in the NFL? I would say the answer is yes, but it's all on him because he needs to show some growth.
Yeah, both on and off the field, mentally and physically. I think there's the potential is there. I think the talent is there, but I don't know that the attitude is there. He's got to be willing to accept criticism. He's got to be able to be coached. He's got to be able to listen when people tell him that he's wrong or he's doing something the wrong way. And he didn't show that with the Eagles. I don't know why. I would think that you would be willing to accept those kind of things, particularly from a coach like Doug Peterson, who played quarterback in the league for 12 years, however long it was. He knows what it takes. He knows how to get the most out of quarterbacks. So I don't know why Carson resisted that. But wherever he goes, he's got to be willing to change his whole outlook, his whole attitude, if he wants to succeed. And the potential is there, but it remains to be seen if he wants to.
You mentioned about that he wants to. Also about Peterson, it's really a shame with Peterson because you and I both agree that he shouldn't have been fired. And it feels like, maybe if Carson Wentz wouldn't have had his head in the sand for half the season, and if there wasn't so many injuries and weren't so many issues this season, that we'd be having a totally different conversation right now. It would be February 17th, 2021, and maybe we're not talking about trading Wentz or the new head coach. Maybe we're talking about just this team retooling this offseason, but it's incredible how one player can literally put an entire organization into a spiral.
Yeah, that's true. Although I don't know that Carson was the reason that Doug was fired. You spoke of retooling, and that seemed to be Jeffrey Lurie's MO, that he's willing to rebuild and stink for the next couple of years in order to be better down the line. Whereas Doug, being the competitor that he is, he knows that he can turn this team around in 1 year. It happens all the time in the NFL. Rarely do teams have to tank or so-called or stink for an extended period of time before they get good again. You see guys that struggle to 3-13 or 6-10 or what have you and make the playoffs the following year. And Doug has proven he can do that. I don't know why they would take the different approach that Doug was willing to give them. That's going to, like I've often mentioned and others have now wrote about, I think this is going to wind up being the biggest mistake of Jeffrey Lurie's tenure is getting rid of Doug Peterson.
Hopefully in 5 years, we get a 30 for 30 about all this and we get some real legitimate answers here, Dave. Dave Weinberg joining us here for a Weinberg Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19 and check out his extra point columns at 97.3 ESPN.com. Dave, a question popped up on television this morning. I thought it was fascinating. I don't think there's a right answer to this question. I think there's some wrong explanations for the answer to this question, but it is a fun debate. So today is Michael Jordan and Jim Brown's birthdays. So which duo has the better birthday combo? Michael Jordan and Jim Brown today, or December 30th, which is LeBron James and Tiger Woods?
Wow. I'm going to go Jordan and Jim Brown. I mean, Jordan's won all those championships, arguably the greatest player in the game. Oh, well, yeah, that's true. So is Tiger and so is LeBron. Jim Brown might be the turning point for me, though. I mean, not only was he an unbelievable football player, but also arguably, it's not mentioned often enough, but he was probably the best lacrosse player in the country when he was at Syracuse. Man, that's tough. Boy, that's going to be. I'm going to go. Like I said, I'm going to go with Michael Jordan and Jim Brown just because I'm old.
See, I was going to go that way, but I thought about this more, and this was my reasoning. Tiger Woods is arguably one of the greatest athletes to ever live, sport bar none, in terms of what he's accomplished. And I feel like any duo that he's paired up with, if they're at least of equal or at least in the ballpark of ability or accomplishment, I think that's kind of where you have to go. I'm going with it because of Tiger less than I am going with about LeBron.
Okay, I can see that argument. Yep, Tiger's definitely, not as the best of all time, but certainly in the top 2 or 3 as far as golf goes.
So I got a couple other birthday duos for you, just for just the fun of it here, before we let you go. Other birthday.
I gotta look up and see who shares my birthday.
Right. Well, there you go. Follow Dave Weinberg, Dave Weinberg 19. I'll tweet it out there. So you got Muhammad Ali and Dwayne Wade share a birthday together.
Wow.
You have Paul Pierce and Jerry Rice. How about that combination?
Man. They're behind those other 2 combinations, but yeah, that's a good one though. Yep.
Kevin Durant and Calvin Johnson. How about that one?
That's very good too. Yeah. It's interesting that these guys share birthdays.
How about this one?
They're not in par with Jordan and
No, they're not. But I just find, like you, I'm finding this interesting. For example, Hank Aaron and Cristiano Ronaldo.
Oh wow, that might be in the top 3 actually, or top 2. I mean, you're talking about some people who still consider Hank the home run king, and Cristiano Ronaldo probably aside from Pele, I guess the best soccer player in history. Man, that's a lethal combination right there.
Bring it back to Philadelphia in the Northeast a little bit. You have Michael Vick and Derek Jeter.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah, but Michael didn't accomplish enough, I don't think, to be considered one of the tops.
And then I got one more for you. This is a non-football, basketball, baseball combo. Just for the fun of it, Alex Ovechkin and Jimmy Johnson, the NASCAR driver.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, Jimmy is arguably one of the most successful drivers in history. That's and Ovechkin certainly one of the best hockey players ever. That's another good one. Although again, I would put that maybe like 7, 8, 9 in the rankings.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think we all can agree that the 2 I mentioned first, the Jordan Brown versus LeBron and Woods, is the cream of the crop. But you get to start going deep in the list, you're just like, whoa, I didn't, I started doing a little research earlier today, and I was like, I didn't realize there were that many that high level athletes all had the same birthdays, like in duos like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd be curious if Jimmy Buffett shares a birthday with anyone. I think he's New Year's Eve, so you have to find someone else, a singer or an actor who's born on the same day. Maybe they could give him a run for their money. I don't know.
He's Dave Weinberg. Again, follow him on Twitter, Dave Weinberg 19. Check out his extra point columns at 973ESPN.com. As our guest, he appeared on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Dave, always appreciate the time and the conversation.
Well, thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me as always. I appreciate it.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget my FanDuel Sportsbook pick of the night coming up in less than about 15, 18 minutes from now. We'll get to that, of course, tonight on the NBA. So I want to get a couple of your comments out there watching the show on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 973 ESPN, as well on the text board at 609-403-0973 is the text board, 609-403-0973. Hit a text first here. We have Dan from Tuckerton. He texted in a lot, but I want to get to the specific first text he says, Dan from Tuckerton, the way Wentz handled being benched and giving off the impression he's bigger than the team is a problem. The culture of the locker room and the filling up together, this is underrated. That's from Dan in Tuckerton. I agree with you, Dan. I think that we don't talk about culture enough. I think as a society, our view of sports has been a little corrupted by fantasy sports and video games, and it's kind of desensitized us to the real world when it comes to sports. Because at the end of the day, Dan and Tuckerton, these are human beings. Human beings that go out there and play these sports, and they have feelings, they have emotions, they have things they have to work through. They have lives. I mean, look at Karl Anthony Towns in the NBA. It's been a very difficult year for him because his mom died after getting COVID last year. He had almost lost his father as well. He's had multiple family members get COVID. And then during the NBA season, he got COVID. So he's had a really rough year. So if Karl Anthony Towns has a down year statistically, are we going to trash the guy, or are we going to chalk it up to the guy had a rough year? You know, the culture of a locker room, how people act on and off the field. These are important things that I don't think gets talked about enough. And I think I'm with Dan and Tuckerton on this. I think that Wentz could have handled things a lot better. And if he didn't give off certain impressions that he was a certain way, you know, your PR is very important. How people perceive you, the optics. You know, they call them on social media influencers for a reason, because people are following you and listening to what you say for a reason. And I say that with athletes. People look up to athletes. Listen, the only reason why a guy like Kyrie Irving has tens of millions of people following him on Instagram and Twitter is because he's an NBA player. Otherwise, nobody would really care half what he says about what he does. These athletes are in the public eye all the time, and it seems like Wentz just can't handle that. And I think that the fact that the team seems to gravitate to Hurts a little bit does say something. Get to a couple comments over here on the YouTube channel. I know some of you out there that don't like Torrey Smith's take on the situation. Okay. I'm going to go over here to John L, who's on the... Now, John, you said a lot of comments in here, so I'm going to try to just zero in on the one. Because John's basic position here, and I'll pop it up on the screen, the larger comment. John's position here is that, you know, Wentz had a bad year. Okay, that's kind of like John's position. Now, John, if I'm misrepresenting, just message in and let me know. But one of John's comments here is the Eagles should get rid of everyone but Carson Wentz. If you're going to commit full-heartedly, not halfway. Everyone who didn't want Wentz should have been gotten rid of. Well, the problem with that, John, is that, you know, if you overlook the fact of how Wentz played himself, at some point, the same guy carried a team in 2019 after having a bunch of injuries, and the next year imploded. So is it that people weren't fully committed to Wentz, or was Wentz not committed to everyone else around him? See, it's easy to say everyone else was bad and not blame the quarterback. There's a lot of metrics out there that a lot of the sacks that Wentz had this year were his own fault. Okay? How many of those sacks were because Wentz held the ball too long? How many of those sacks were because Wentz didn't take the easy throw? Was because Wentz didn't trust the players around him to do their job? At some point, you got to just play. You got to go out there and do your job. And I think Wentz, whether people were committed to him or not, you could find a way to play. Kirk Cousins was in an untenable situation in Washington where they kept franchising, tagging him again and again, and he put up some pretty gaudy numbers, some pretty gaudy stats that got him, what was it, $86 million guaranteed from the Vikings for 3 years. You can work through a bad situation and still be successful. And I think sometimes we're a little bit too quick to want to blame people who are not the ones with their names on the back of the jersey. One more text in here before we hit the break. Dan from EHT at 609-403-0973 says, Chicago is perfect for Wentz. There's no expectations. Nobody can play quarterback in Chicago. Listen, if Wentz goes out there and plays anywhere like he has in his past career, he goes down as one of the 3-4 best quarterbacks in Bears history. Who are the 3 best quarterbacks in Bears history right now? It's Sid Luckman, Jim McMahon, and Jay Cutler, I guess. If Wentz plays even decently well, that franchise is going to make him a statue of his own. Just saying. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, text board is open, 609-403-0973. You can also watch on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We are live here in the Matt Black Kia studios on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up next, we'll head up to the center. Sixers back at home versus the Rockets. And Kevin McCormick, our 97.3 ESPN.com Sixers writer, joins us next here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Harris throws it away. Simmons with a steal. Simmons down the lane. Oh, yeah! Right down Broad Street with a two-hand jam.
The Sixers host the Houston Rockets tonight. Coverage begins at 7:30. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN.
Kendall Auto Plaza offers the area's best car and truck buying experience with 60 years of customer satisfaction and community service. What's on their 100-acre lot? A huge inventory of Ford, Lincoln, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Chrysler, and over 100 quality and certified pre-owned vehicles. Whether you use your car, truck, or SUV for work or play, discover why Kendall customers are so loyal. Kendall Auto Plaza, exit 10 of the Parkway on Stone Harbor Boulevard, or shop from home at KendallAutoplaza.com.
A message from your neighbors and friends at First Bank. We've been serving residents and businesses of Sea Isle City and the surrounding communities for more than 130 years. Today's challenges, while unique, are another opportunity to show our strength and resilience. Our commitment to you remains strong. Whether it's using our drive-through services, bank by phone, the First Bank mobile app, or online banking, we're staying strong with you. Be safe and be secure. First Bank, here for you.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Feeling stressed in your skin? Not with new Olay Body Wash infused with skincare ingredient retinol. Olay with retinol improves skin 3 times better versus the leading body wash, transforming skin from dry and stressed to bright and smooth, so I can step into stressful days feeling my best in my skin. Olay Body, fearless in my skin. Now try Olay's other skincare-inspired body washes with hyaluronic acid, vitamin C, and collagen.
Start the new year in a new Kia at Matt Blatt Kia in Toms River or Egg Harbor Township today. The new year is an opportunity to set goals and start fresh. And at Matt Blatt Kia, our goal is to get you out of that old car you hate. Come in today or visit us online and get the credit you deserve this new year.
It's gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and now on Route 37 in Toms River.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Yes, that's right. Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. We'll go back to your texts and messages in just a bit at 609-403-0973. And you watching live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, you can comment below on the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Sports Match with Mike Gill, Game Night with Josh Hennig, Monday through Friday right here on 97.3 ESPN. We are streaming live. But right now, joining us from the center up there in Philadelphia, he is Kevin McCormick for Sixers versus Rockets 7:30 tonight on 97.3 ESPN. And Kevin McCormick joins us, all guests do, on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Kevin, how you doing tonight?
Josh, I'm doing great. How about yourself, man?
Doing pretty good. So let's get into this Sixers team. First of all, let's get to the breaking news that we popped off with at the top of the show. No Ben Simmons tonight. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Doc said earlier today that Joel Embiid will play tonight, but they'll be without Ben Simmons. He said Ben's going through a bit of a stomach bug right now. He said it's an illness not related to COVID, so there'll be no Ben Simmons on the floor tonight, sadly, after the performance he just put on against the Jazz.
So now we saw the Sixers without Embiid the other night. Now we're going to see them without Ben Simmons. So what can we expect from the Sixers tonight? Because according to the odds makers, they've already moved the over-under, Kevin. They've kept the spread for the Sixers the same, but the odds makers are telling you, according to their estimation, no Ben Simmons means more overall points scored. So do we expect to see a bit of a lesser defensive effort tonight from the 76ers?
I don't know, because you still have a lot of defenders on the Sixers roster. If you look at Matisse Thybulle, who is not the tier level defender that Ben Simmons is, but very close. Tobias Harris is a great defender in his own right, and not to mention there'll still be Joel Embiid manning everything right at the rim. So although, you'll be without Ben Simmons and he's kind of that star defender, Houston is going to be without a lot of their key pieces. Victor Oladipo is not playing tonight. PJ Tucker will not be playing tonight. They don't have Christian Wood. So really all they're going to be leaning on is John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins. So although you'll be giving up defense in Ben Simmons. I don't know if that would necessarily turn this game into just kind of a revolving door defensively from both teams.
When you think about it also tonight, you also have the question of who is actually going to handle the ball, and there's no Shake Milton. So what do you expect to see? More Maxey tonight, maybe more different guys who maybe don't usually handle the ball as ball handlers? What would you expect to see from the Sixers tonight?
I would expect to see kind of a ball handling by committee from this group. I think we'll see a lot of Tobias Harris as the primary ball handler at times. Tyrese Maxey will most likely assume that role for the second unit as well. But in that starting lineup, I would expect a mix of Harris, Seth Curry, and Furkan Korkmaz, who hasn't been announced yet, but it feels like that would be the most obvious decision of who should replace Simmons in the starting lineup.
Kevin McCormick joining us here live from the center right here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Sixers versus Rockets night. You hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 7:30 tonight. Kevin, you wrote about over at 97.3 ESPN.com. You wrote about this game tonight and about the fact that there are some concerns with this team coming off this trip. And one of the things you mentioned is the three-point shooting. And I would go as far to say it's more than just the three-point shooting, to me at least, because when you take out Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris in that Utah game, the rest of the team shot just under 41% from the field, not from three, from the field. So how concerning is it that when guys have big games like Tobias and Ben the other night, that the rest of the team didn't step up?
I would say it's a little concerning, but it also is just like in that article I said, the second unit has really missed Shake Milton as of late. They've had some serious struggles in creating offense and being able to just maintain leads at times. And like you brought up in that Utah game, it's very rough when you have Ben Simmons go for a career high, near 40-point triple-double. Tobias Harris got close to his career high, and they still weren't even close for the most of that game. So seeing the bench struggle, I think it really put into notice of just how important it is that the Sixers still need to improve from how well they've been this season. In that article, I talked a lot about the three-point shooting. As rough as it's been, what is more concerning to me is the lack of attempts from deep, and especially on a night like tonight where the offense is solely going to be run through Joel Embiid, you're going to need to get those shots up to keep that space, keep the space around the rim open up for him to, do his thing in the post, to have his mid-range game going. So hopefully we see a more, emphasized look on three-point shots tonight. But it's going to be tough without Ben Simmons. We saw in that Portland game that it was very tough for the Sixers to create three-point shots. So it's this weird catch-22 of they need to, up to three-point attempts moving forward, but we'll be without Ben Simmons, who, as we know, is one of the best in the NBA at creating three-point attempts.
Now, with all that being said, one of the things you also brought up in the article is about trade targets for the team. If Daryl Morey came up to you and asked you tonight, what is the one player or position that I have to target first and foremost, what would you tell him?
First and foremost, I would have to say another ball handling guard off the bench, just because, like I just said, the Sixers have really missed Shake Milton. I think if you can go get a more pure point guard who can come in with that second unit, play alongside Shake Milton, and help just keep that offense flowing, it could be a huge boost to not only that second unit, but the whole team as a whole.
Kevin McCormick joining us here live from the center here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, 7:30 is the start time tonight. Tom McGinnis on the call right here on your home for the 76ers on the radio, 97.3 ESPN. Check out Kevin McCormick's latest article on the Sixers over at 97.3 ESPN.com. He's one of our three great writers on the website, of course, also on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Kevin, when you think about also this team moving forward, because the expectation is this team is going to win this game, which might be a curse in of itself, because the last time we expected them to win a game, right, they lost it, but neither here nor there. Coming off that road trip, I have to assume that no matter what happens tonight, it's got to be a relief from them to get off of that 4-game road trip, because there were times they just looked uncomfortable and not all together, and it seemed like the road trip was just kind of wearing on them.
Yeah, I think it's a mix of things. First off, obviously going out west in terms of the time zone and just that switch up definitely has to play its toll as well. But another thing that just really made that road trip tough was they caught most of those teams just at a really bad time. Sacramento was playing really well heading into that game, even though the Sixers were able to win that game. But if you look at Utah and Phoenix, they were both playing extremely great basketball leading into those games. Both were riding decent-sized win streaks. So I think it was just catching good teams at a time where they were on some really good runs, really paid its toll. And, teams were able to just run all over the Sixers, especially Utah, who just basically ran them out of the gym with that run and gun style.
Of course, Sixers have a rematch with the Jazz coming up in a couple of weeks on March 3rd against the Jazz on it's at home that time. But before the Jazz game comes up, also, what about this upcoming schedule? Rockets tonight, Bulls Friday night, and then the back-to-back games, not back-to-back nights, but back-to-back games with the Raptors down in Tampa, and then you come back with the Mavs and the Cavs and then the Pacers. So it seems like the schedule gives them an opportunity to kind of hit that reset button and recalibrate, Kevin.
Absolutely. It shows a lot of trend towards how the season started off with them, where there was a lot of favorable matchups. I mean, that back-to-back with Toronto could really go either way, but this game is a very winnable game. We look at Chicago, who's had their struggles as well. So there is a lot of games where the Sixers, if they can continue to take advantage of the teams that they're supposed to, like they've done so far this season, it really can set them up to just, getting the ship back right and heading into the break with just some really good momentum.
Kevin, before I let you go, if you had to predict how many guys actually become all-stars from the Sixers roster this year, objectively, who do we think actually is going to make it? Is it just going to be Embiid? Is it going to be Embiid and Simmons and Harris? What do you think is going to happen?
If I had to say right now, I think Joel Embiid is the only lock, and then you put Simmons and Harris as wild cards, just because there's so many players in the Eastern Conference that could be named all-stars right now. So, I mean, based on how the fan voting went, obviously it did not favor Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris well, but I think they storm a comeback with the media and coaches' votes. But in terms of just pure locks, I would say Joel Embiid should be a lock to be a starter, and then Simmons and Harris, maybe they squeak in. It'll all depend on how voters view their contribution so far this season and if they feel the Sixers are worthy of having two All-Stars.
He's Kevin McCormick. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at KevinMCC973. Check out his article before you watch or hear the game tonight over at 97.3ESPN.com. And as all guests, he appear on the Boardwalk kind of hotline. Kevin, enjoy the game tonight, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks, Josh. Take care.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, we will get back to your messages in just a moment at 609-403-0973. I want to remind you about my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. That's right. FanDuel Sportsbook is your home for same-game parlays. That's right. You can bet on one game and make a big winning like we did last night. We gave you the game last night. Nets at the Suns hit the over 227, and Joe Harris hit the over 15.5. That was a nice value play last night, and you can do those value plays over on FanDuel Sportsbook. That's right, FanDuel Sportsbook. Use my promo code Hennig when you sign up. That's Hennig when you sign up with FanDuel Sportsbook, and you can get same-game parlay insurance, 3 legs or more on a parlay, and you can get your bet back up to $25. You'll only do that with FanDuel Sportsbook. Promo code Hennig when you sign up. So where am I going with the games tonight? Real quick before we get back to your messages at 609-403-0973 and watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I am going to go to Chicago versus Detroit. That's right. The Bulls and the Pistons. There's really not a lot of guys out for this game. Blake Griffin is not playing, but that's mostly because he hasn't been playing much anyway. He has played poorly, actually, for the most part. Otto Porter hasn't played most of the year pretty much anyway. So you have the primary guys, Jeremy Grant, Zach LaVine, and others playing tonight. So give me the over 219.5 in that game. Yes, 219.5 is the over-under. And when you think about another play in the game tonight, you know who's been playing really well? DeLon Wright. That's right. DeLon Wright is a guy the Sixers have targeted, and the Bulls don't play great defense. So give me DeLon Wright over 12.5. When you combine that with the over 219.5, that's plus 222 odds. For those of you who are trying to drive and can't do math that quickly, that is at $10 for gets you $22.20 value play over at FanDuel Sportsbook. All right, let's get a couple of your comments before we get out of here at 609-403-0973. John from Cape May chimes in. What's going on, John? How you doing, man? John says the Eagles ruined Wentz, period. Everyone this year was bad, and Wentz was the only one under the microscope. Mark my words, we are going to regret this big time in terms of trading him. Well, John, here's the thing. I don't know if the Eagles ruined Wentz as much as Wentz let himself be ruined. Think about this way. When Wentz threw those interceptions, nobody made him throw those interceptions. He voluntarily made some horrible plays this year. He put his team in bad positions. I would argue the Eagles would have won at least 3 more games if it wasn't for Wentz's interceptions and poor play at times. So, yes, Wentz is under the microscope, but partly because of the fact that he made so many bad plays and he didn't really own it. He didn't confess to it. He didn't live up to it. So, yes, everyone played poorly. But the offensive line injuries, I can't blame that on anyone but injuries. That's not anyone playing bad. The Jalen Reagor got injured. I can't hate on him for that. I think that sometimes we forget that, yes, you got to hold everyone accountable. But it doesn't mean that Wentz didn't have a bad year just because we are focusing on him. And listen, maybe the Eagles will regret this, John and Kate, man. I appreciate you texting in. Maybe he will regret it. Maybe they will regret having to go through this, but you could also argue that Wentz put them in this position to go through this, and that maybe Wentz could have stopped all of this from happening. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks, Dave Weinberg and Kevin McCormick, for joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Sixers Rockets tonight at 7:30. I'll catch you tomorrow.
97.3 ESPN presents high school basketball.
97.3 ESPN's high school basketball coverage continues Thursday with the rodeo rematch. This is Tom Williams. Mike Gill and Mike Frankel will be at St. Augustine Prep when undefeated St. Joseph Academy comes to visit. First place in the Cape Atlantic League's West Conference will be on the line. It's a Calvi Electric Game of the Week, produced by Prime Events. St. Joseph at St. Augustine with Mike and Mike, Thursday at 6 on 97.3 ESPN.
Health update.